Cardboard Studios presents.
Heavy Cardboard, Episode 12, Three Kingdoms Redux. Coming to you from snowy Denver, Colorado. Welcome to Heavy Cardboard, where we talk medium-heavy strategy board games, war games, 18xx, and other related topics in the board gaming hobby. We're your hosts. I'm Edward.
I am Tony. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Episode 12. Let's remind you how to get in contact with us. Reach us at Twitter, at Heavy Cardboard, Facebook, Heavy Cardboard. Our email account is heavycardboard@gmail.com. And you can reach us on the website, heavycardboard.com.
You'd think we were called Heavy Cardboard with all that, you know?
Hey, how are you, my friend?
Good. I'm doing well. We're recording this on Sunday before BGG Con. We're leaving on Tuesday for it. So by the time folks hear this, I will be amongst those that made the trek down to Dallas, Texas.
I will still be here in Denver.
Sorry. Hopefully next year. Right.
Next year, I want Gen Con for sure and BGG Con probably.
Well, I'm hoping Essen and BGG Con for sure.
Wow.
So hopefully when you're listening to this right now, I'm in the middle of some epic gaming, you know. Definitely come find me. Kind of a big guy. Probably be wearing a Heavy Cardboard gray hoodie.
With a red Heavy Cardboard t-shirt under it.
Yeah, very well possibly. So other than that, not much going on. Got my new iPhone 6 Plus this week. Pretty stoked. It's awesome.
You're going to be employing this device at BGGCon.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be taking videos and all that, but I'll talk more about that later.
Okay. So cool. Before we get started, we want to thank the great people at Game Surplus for their sponsorship of our show. Good people and reputation and a great inventory of games, including a lot of imports and hard-to-find games. Their tagline is the home of great games at great prices. Check them out at www.gamesurplus.com. And I know they're still waiting for some more Essen arrivals. I noticed they got a couple things.
Yeah, they got
Aquasphere
some.
Came in and went out like a breeze, like fast.
They also got Panthalos, which if you're a follower of ours on Twitter, we actually let folks know before they even put the posting on their website, as they are wont to do. So if you don't follow us on Twitter, it would behoove you if you want to be the first in to know on stuff like this. So yeah, big shout out to Velma and Amos over at Game Surplus. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. And speaking of Game Surplus and their sponsorship of Heavy Cardboard, we are pleased to announce
our second giveaway in the history of Heavy Cardboard. Thanks to Game Surplus, we are going to do a quarterly giveaway of a game of our choosing. And this quarter is the wonderful Matthias Kramer game,
Rococo. Matthias Kramer and the Maltz Brothers.
I apologize. There you go. So to enter the contest, really simple. Email us, heavycardboard@gmail.com with the subject line Rococo giveaway. And just tell us what your favorite or maybe top 3 favorite gaming mechanics are. Pretty simple. Open to all listeners. If you're out of the U.S., we will pay the first $15 for shipping. The rest is on you. If you're in the U.S., it's free. Sorry, guys, but shipping's expensive, and it's not like we're rolling in the cash here. So,
when are we going to announce this winner?
We'll announce it in our next episode, which should be coming out. I believe it's December 4th. That way, you guys, hopefully, at least for the local folk, will get the game in time for Christmas.
Rock on.
All right. So again, thanks a lot to Velma and company at Game Surplus for making this available.
All right, let's rock and roll. What have you acquired since we've last recorded together?
Well, there's a lot that I've acquired, but only a handful of things that have actually crossed the threshold into the house, which is what my definition of acquired is.
Okay.
So the things that are actually physically in the house now. I was able to lock down a copy of Endeavor based on your recommendation for a whopping $35.
Nice.
That was awesome.
It's a freaking steal.
I know. That was cool. Got the original Fragor Games edition of Snow Tales, which And maybe, it's a race game, whatever. But as a collector, I have Spellbound. We're getting Dragon Scrolls, and the wife loves the artwork on the Fragger game stuff. So if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. You know how that works. My buddy Emmanuel sent me a copy of Blocks in Africa.
Yeah,
so
man.
now I have the whole trilogy, Blocks in East, Blocks in the West, Blocks in Africa. And either in 2015 or 2016, hopefully he's coming out with Blocks in the Pacific. So we'll have all of World War II. That would be wicked cool. A couple more things. We got Ottoman Sunset and Habsburg Eclipse, both from Victory Point Games. They both cover different topics going on during World War I. They're solo games. They're small, little boxes, a little bit bigger than like a VHS for those that are old enough to remember.
They're solo games.
Yeah, they're solo Victory Point games. They're both well thought of. They look cool. I was like, sure, got them for a good price. And last but not least, got a couple of small expansions for Snowdonia, the Necropolis, and I'm going to butcher it, but Neuhauser Buckerbahn expansion for Snowdonia. So, yeah, that's all I got. How about you?
Using your threshold analogy, well, Luna's the only thing that has crossed the threshold.
Which is awesome. I'm excited you finally laid hands on that.
The only two things I've acquired have been, I made a trade. I traded Pillars of the Earth and the expansion for Castles of Mad King Ludwig and Imperial Settler. So those will be
That's
here
a win.
in the next week or so.
Cool.
So
good deal.
it's very cool. Pillars will never see the table again. So in the expansion is a highly sought after thing.
Yeah, it's definitely worth a pretty penny. I know that.
Let's see, what's in transit to us at this point in time?
Oh, God. There's, as far as for the show or for me?
Both of us. The show, you, and me.
As of right now, I think I have 15 games that I've acquired through the virtual flea market for Board Game Geek Con.
Wow.
So I'm not going to list all those.
No. What's the top three you're excited about?
Arkwright, number one.
Yeah, well, wait a minute.
What?
Arkwright through the virtual flea market?
No. You just games in general that I'm excited about.
My apologies, listeners.
No, I hopefully.
Okay, so the top three, no matter what their source is.
Between here in the next week, if you will. Things that I'm excited to either, say, play or acquire. How's that?
Sounds good. Arkwright. And Arkwright, we hope, should that sucker actually cross the threshold, we've been waiting forever. Post from Germany is slow.
Right, yeah. So
in this it only took 2 weeks for Luna to get here. It's already taken 4 on Arkwright.
It happens.
It does, but we're hoping that, that'll be our next topic, our next show.
If not, the one after.
Yes.
How about this? How about I give you things that I'm excited about to experience or check out at BGGCon?
That sounds good.
All right. In no particular order outside of Arkwright, because Arkwright is number one, I have 2 games set up, one Spinning Jenny and one Waterframe game set up for Arkwright. I'm looking forward to the political conflict game, Churchill. I have a 3-player, 3-hour game, a demo, not really demo, it's a full game, but Mark Herman's new game coming out. I'm looking forward to demoing Vital Lacerda's upcoming game for next year, The Gallerist.
Oh, yeah.
I know that the developer has a copy with him, and so I'm really excited to be able to get a play of that in. And probably in no particular order, I would say Alchemists. I'm looking forward to checking out. Me too. Kanban, obviously, another Vital game.
I am curious, and I know you are receiving a copy of this at BGGCon, but I'm curious about the Golden Ages.
Yeah, the Quinn games, King games, QUINED games. Yeah, but anyway, I'm looking forward that and Massilia, which I know is later, but I thought they both looked interesting. I'm getting a copy. I pre-ordered already, so looking forward to picking those up.
Massilia too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Let me know how that one is.
I will. Well, you'll be playing it at some point up here, I'm sure.
Maybe.
So how about you? That's what I was able to play Castles of Mad King Ludwig the other night.
Right.
And
I figure my wife is going to be just a castleaholic on that one. So
it's a fun latish tile placing game with a cool auction mechanic.
Yeah.
And who's ever the active player chooses
the pricing
of everything.
I love that kind of crap.
Simple but fun.
Yeah.
It's a game that, let's put it this way, we played our buddy Sweater Mike.
Right.
We played his copy. We were all three of us were really tired. He just drove all the way from Iowa that day, and it'd been a long day at work for us. But even so, we still had enough fun to where both Amanda and I were like, yeah, we're going to have to get a copy of this. So
Fun
that was
is all I'm expecting from that game.
Yeah, not heavy, obviously,
No.
nothing like that. I've been playing Three Kingdoms
let's
Redux.
talk about what we've been playing.
Right, obviously, Three Kingdoms Redux,
Yeah.
Castles of Mad King Ludwig, and the last one that I wanted to talk about, and I'll talk about more here in a minute, is Uruk II.
Yes. Likewise, I've been playing Three Kingdoms Redux.
I wouldn't have guessed.
and Uruk II, so I'm excited to talk about that with you.
Cool.
That was pretty cool. Played Luna since it's arrived.
Which I have not, and I'm really excited to try it out.
It's a cool game. Played a terrific round of Ora Labora 2-player.
I've never played it 2-player. I've played it 3 and 4.
It's spectacular 2-player too.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm sure we're going to feature that at some point, because both you and I are fans of the game. So I know you're going to touch on Luna here in a minute, and I feel like there's a part of, I've played a part of it in a sense because of some of the mechanics drawn out of Luna for La Granja.
Right.
And so I'm curious how that fits in. Again, having not played it. So you want to go ahead and kick that off?
Sure. Okay. Luna it's a medium game maybe at the most. It's not a heavy game by any means. A lot of people regard it as one of Feld's best. I, as a Feld fanboy, felt it was one I needed to acquire and try because I never had tried it before.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it a little bit. It was put out in 2010 by Stefan Feld. The artwork was by Clemens Franz.
The one and only.
The one and only Clemens Franz. Hull Games is the publisher. Thank you, Ralph. That's where I got my copy.
Cool.
Z-Man Games handled the English edition. Interestingly enough, although I got my game from Hull, it was the Z-Man edition. It's a 1 to 4 player game.
Oh, so you can play it solo. Cool.
I
said
guess.
You can.
Right. Didn't say I would. And the game takes about 20 to 25 minutes per player. It's not a long game at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. During the game, players are moving their novices, which are these really cool little wooden meeples with like flowing robes and a pointy robe hat.
So would they be meeples?
Meeples?
Yeah, for novice.
Maybe.
Meeples.
Maybe.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
They look like religious cultists. You move your novices over 7 different islands that surround this main temple island. And each of those islands provides a different kind of favor token. And those favor tokens allow you to have your novices take on different actions, like building a temple or traveling to the other islands in different modes, or collecting gold that you'll use to bribe the guards and things like that. The novices, they aren't placed at the beginning of a round. This is what's interesting in how you move your meeples around, your neeples around, is because where they end up from the previous round is where they obviously begin this round. So There's a lot of decisions to make about where you're going to move and where you're going to leave them and where the different figures in the game will be in the next round as well. But those 3 figures, there's the Master Builder, the Apostate, and the Moon Priestess that move around on those islands, and they do different things. The Master Builder indicates on which island the players can build temples. The Apostate is, he's the heretic. If he's present on the island with your meeples at the end of a turn, you're going to lose some points. It is a Feld game. You have to lose points in some fashion.
Sure,
right?
of course.
And the Moon Priestess gives victory points to novices that haven't done anything that turn and are on the island with her, i.e. they've been praying to her.
I was just going to say that thematically that makes sense. Sure.
The part you talked about, that La Granja borrowed the idea from Luna, is the Temple Island. The implementation in Luna is, I think, better.
Okay, all right.
Than the implementation in La Granja. And the reason I think that is because surrounding the Temple Island is a track, and on the track are these tiles that increase in number, in the number printed on them. They increase in value. And each of those tiles has an icon on it that matches one of the 7 islands. So in order to claim that tile, you have to have a novice on one of those islands to claim that tile.
Okay.
Okay.
I see that. I got you.
But there's also some guards on the track. So you can only claim tiles that are before the guard. Unless you have some gold, in which case you can claim a tile behind the guard.
Right.
Because you bribed
for
them.
sure.
And those numbers play just like they do in La Granja. When you move them into the temple, you displace for victory points.
So that's the mechanic that it borrowed from.
Borrowed.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
And that's pretty cool in there because, first of all, when you put a guy in there, a novice in there, novices are hard to come by. Now you got a guy earning you a victory point every round, but he's out of the game, essentially, unless he gets booted. And when they get booted, they go to the dock. So now you got to haul them off the dock to get them back into play.
Interesting, because when you said that you kind of lose them, for the remainder of the game, up until that point, I was like, that kind of has something in common with our main game today. But then you said you can get them back.
You can get them back.
All right.
So anyway, it's a great game. I think it's full of Feldian goodness. Maybe it's a little too short, but maybe that's a good thing, because it's not a super heavy game or anything like that. I think that if you're a Feld fan, even though this game's hard to get, you should try to get it. I'm going to give it a rating of a 3.
Okay.
And if you get it and you don't like it, you can easily get your money back for this game.
No doubt.
It's literally not available. Literally. I had to beg for my copy.
And it was ugly. You should have seen knee pads. Just terrible. Just terrible.
So that's what's cooking with Luna.
All right. Sounds cool. I'm anxious to try it. And I'm glad you got a copy so that I can try yours before I decide whether or not to drop the coin on it.
You know who's going to dig Luna?
Amanda?
Yeah, man.
Yeah?
Because she's a Feld fan girl.
Oh, absolutely. She's a huge Feld fan.
She's going to like
Feldian.
Luna. So, Uruk II.
Yeah, so Uruk II, and I'm not even going to try and do the German pronunciation, but it translates to the development continues. Because this is kind of a second edition, kind of an updated version,
Improved,
I guess.
From what I hear.
From what I hear. From, again, having no experience with the original Uruk, all the changes from what I've read are nothing but positive. So I can't give any comparisons between the two.
Okay.
However, from what I've read and from my experience, pretty cool game. So without further ado, it's a quick, light civ building card game where each player is developing their own civilization over the course of 5 epochs. Everyone will have to deal with the same disasters, all while trying to build villages and cities and score the most points at the end of the 5th epoch. So it plays 2 to 5 players and plays 30 minutes to an hour based on familiarity with the rules. Your first game's going to take longer. And a 2-player game, if both players know the game, probably could take 20 to 30 minutes. A 4-player game's going to run closer to that hour time frame probably. So what's happening in the game is, at its heart, it's a card drafting, set collection, action point allowance game. During each of the 5 epochs, players will be trying to build achievements, which are the actual cards in the game, after which you're going to want to build villages and then upgrade those villages into cities, as that's what you're going to score at the end of the game. That's what's going to score you the points, the villages and the cities. During a turn, you can do 3 things, and you can do any mix of these 3 total for 3 times. Draw a card, play a card, or use one of your already played cards or achievements, use one of their effects. That's it. That's the majority of the game in a nutshell.
Yes.
Like I said, you get 3 action points, and you can do any of those 3 actions up to 3 times total, mix and match as you need. So what I think's cool about the game is the civilization cards. There are like 4 or 5 or so of each for each epic, and you shuffle them up, and you only use one of those per game. So
variability.
Out the wazoo. And the cool thing about those is they each have a disaster and a prerequisite that give you how to build the achievements. And that changes each game. So you don't know what disasters are going to come each game, and you don't know, okay, I need to have sets of these or more than normal sets, and it's just the replayability is huge.
Those civilization cards, they provide a little bit of an interesting challenge in the game for the players, because the disaster is like, well, I have to collect these things by the end of the round and save them, not use them, and spend them to avoid that disaster.
Right.
Or, screw it, maybe I can afford to have the disaster. But then
more often than not.
That other part, that prerequisite, is a little like added difficulty on doing certain things in the game. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I totally agree with that. Another thing that I like are the god cards. See, the gods are all kind and helpful, but the player who the gods favor the most, i.e., let's say the gods want the player with the most bricks. So if you have the most bricks, you'll have to discard all your bricks and you'll get a better reward for doing so. But it's your choice. Maybe you're like, maybe that's too big of an ask. Maybe you have 5 bricks and you don't want to discard them. So then it passes to the next player who has the second most amount of bricks, and they can choose. And if everybody chooses to pass, and all the other players that didn't have that option just get maybe 1 brick as opposed to 2 bricks, or something along those lines, whatever.
And the god cards, they're like mixed in the deck, so
random when they come out.
When the gods come out, the gods come out.
Yep. It's kind of an added little fun and interesting helper, those gods.
One thing I thought was really cool about the god thing is because when you're resolving a god card, if you have to draw some more cards and another god card comes up, it's disregarded. So you never can be sure that the same number of gods is going to appear in every game as well.
And you could just keep drawing god cards. You could get 4 in a row and 3 of them get discarded. And
there's a ton of variability.
Agreed. Another thing I like is, at least for the 2 to 4 player aspect, it scales well. There's not too much downtime. The game plays pretty quick, so it scales pretty well. And it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a good game for like between meaty games, or maybe just you want something lighter. Mm-hmm. If like you and I, in between football games, maybe we have time.
When we played it, I've only had one opportunity to play it. We played it after a game of 3 Kingdoms Redux. It was me, you, and Matt, and we were like brain dead and tired. It was getting late, and we really kind of struggled to learn it. And I'm so glad we did, because I had a ball. It was super fun. It had enough challenge in it.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely, it fills its niche well.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're looking for something that's a step up from filler that will fill that half hour to an hour time frame, I think you could do a lot worse than Uruk II.
Have you formulated any rating of this game at this early stage?
Not completely, I'll be honest. I mean, I could see it being a 2, to where it's like, yeah, it's a good game, but it's not, that you need to go out and get it, especially for the cost. With this being, for U.S.-based folks, it's probably going to be in the $40 to $50 range because of it being an import. I probably wouldn't recommend it at that price. If it were $20, $30, sure, then I could. Sure. So I don't know really if I'd rated a 2 or a 3 yet, so I want to give it a little bit more time to gestate.
Fair enough.
And that's Uruk II.
The empire long united must divide. The empire long divided must unite. It's time to talk about 3 Kingdoms Redux.
It's the 3rd century A.D. The Severan dynasty has ended in Rome, and the military anarchy that will nearly destroy the Roman Empire has begun. Meanwhile, in China, the Han dynasty is falling apart. The time between roughly 220 A.D. and 280 A.D. was one of the bloodiest in Chinese history. The 3 main states that were fighting for control were the Wei, Wu, and Shu, each led by their own emperor or lord. It's during this period that the game takes place. Each player will control one of the 3 lords, managing the different aspects of their state, all while guarding their borders against both border tribes and the other 2 states. Whoever manages each of the 9 scoring aspects better than their opponents will win the game. Welcome to 3 Kingdoms Redux. So 3 Kingdoms Redux, published this year, soon, 2014, designed by Christina Ng and Yao King Leong. The artist, Ray To, did a fantastic job on this game.
Nailed it.
Publisher, who also is Christina and Yao, is starting player out of Singapore. The player count, it's 3 players only, the end. It's not plays with no, it's
Nope.
3 players.
It's 3.
Game length, about, say, 2 to 2.5 hours, give or take.
Yes, sir.
Before we dive into components, graphic design, so on and so forth, we wanted to just say thanks to Christina and Youster,
Yes.
who sent us a review copy of this game, an advanced copy, straight from Panda.
Straight from Panda, airmailed. It was in China one day. It was in Denver the next.
So thanks a lot for doing that.
It was incredibly awesome, guys. Thank you.
That said, it's not going to influence our review, but you guys know that, so we'll move on.
Yep.
Components and graphic design. Tony, what do you think?
Wow.
Yeah.
I say let's start with the Art of the Generals booklet that we got. This book has 30-something pages full of larger illustrations of all the different cards, complete with a little history and legend of the different personalities in the game. Just an amazing addition.
And on that note, we didn't get it just because they wanted to entice the reviewer. We got it because the first, and I don't know how many, but the first few...
It's a limited thing.
Yeah, it's a limited thing. So if you order early, once they're available, then you'll also get that book, which is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful artwork.
It has nothing to do with gameplay, but if you appreciate some terrific art and extra things, get it.
Staying with the component quality,
Yes.
everything has a linen finish on it. Which were both, even the box itself is linen finished. Just everything, Panda quality. It really is top notch. The counters and the chits are real thick. Cardboard. The card quality
Cards
is good.
They're 7 Wonder sized for all you sleeveaholics out there. The board.
As far as
It's, I think it's exceptionally well done.
it's kind of got a 3D kind of
Yeah.
look to it.
The art on the board is a little less sophisticated than on the cards, but it kind of has to be so that it doesn't get in the way of the gameplay. Very attractive board and highly functional.
All the different decks of cards, because every faction has their own deck, as well as the state enhancement cards. Every card has its own unique art. I mean, every card. So, yeah, it just top notch.
The player aids, there's one for each kingdom, and the front side is tailored to your kingdom in terms of some of the slightly different things like card draws and things like that. And on the back side is the detailed listing of the other players' generals and their abilities. Very handy.
Yeah, really well done. The only, in graphic design wise, the only minor beef that I may bring up is
Might be the same one I have.
probably it's the bidding
Yeah.
and the action track, the way that's done, but we'll get into that more. So that's the one graphic design issue that I have. So let's move on to rulebook clarity and quality.
Indeed.
I personally think the rulebook is laid out really well, has tons of examples. Kind of not really a beef with it, but some of the rules or some of the explanations that aren't in the quote-unquote rulebook are in the examples, which a lot of rulebooks are tending to do nowadays, which I got to admit I'm not the biggest fan of. The fact that some things aren't laid out as a rule, but you only find that out in the example.
I'm going to disagree. I didn't find anything. The only thing I found in the examples was more clarity.
And maybe that's a better way for me to word it, is maybe a further clarification of this. Like, okay, maybe this isn't crystal clear,
Right.
but once you look at the example, then, okay.
Right.
And that's
exactly
what I'm trying to say.
I found all the rules in the rules.
Right.
I did find clarity in the examples. I had to read the rule book a couple of times and act it out on the board. That's kind of my normal process anyway. But I thought overall the rules were of good quality.
I do think that we had, we've played the game 4 times now.
4 times.
And I think over the course of all that, and we've played with multiple players, we have had, I think, 4 or 5 rules questions that we either had to reference into the rule book, or if it wasn't laid out perfectly, explained perfectly, that common sense, kind of, that and a little bit of discussion between us, we're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Let's play it that way. And after further clarification from the designers, found out we were right. So overall, I'd say really well done on the rule book. Moving on to availability and cost. The day you guys are hearing this is the day it's available, November 20th. It's $55, give or take a little bit with the exchange rate, plus shipping. It's available directly from the publisher. Early orders also receive the art book, which we brought up, and we both really highly recommend. Gorgeous artwork and more history with each general in the game. Plays and player counts that we've experienced and scalability.
Yeah, how do you feel about the scalability of this 3-player only game, sir?
Well, like we said, we played it 4 times. However, we played them all 3-player, except for the most recent. We kind of played it 4-player, and I say that because Amanda teamed up with me and kind of doubled up to where she and I both played the Way faction. So we did kind of a teamwork. This way she could experience the game as well. So again, it's a 3-player game. It doesn't scale unless you want to buddy up, with certain factions.
It was a good way for her to learn the game, too.
Right. And one thing I also want to point out is all of us have, you, me, and Matt, all played all 3 factions at least once, if not multiple times.
Yeah. Edward, tell us what's going on in this game.
All right. Before the game starts, each of the 3 kingdoms have asymmetric starting positions. Each player is going to draft a different number of generals to go along with their lords. Each general has different strengths as well as a special ability. Not just the lords, all the generals.
Everybody
has a special ability. Wei, the strongest early on in the game, has a total of 5 generals, including their lord, Cao Cao, yet the fewest resources and the fewest state enhancement cards. Wu is in the middle with 4 generals and a middle amount of resources and cards. Shu, while the weakest, starting with only 3 generals, including their lord, Liu Bei, has the most resources and the most state enhancement cards. Each player is going to use each of those generals to bid on the 15 available action spaces. 12 of those action spaces are common for all 3 players and can be bid upon between any of the players. One of them, the improved tribal relations spot, is uncontested for each individual player, and each player has their own that has to deal with tribal relations. There are also 2 others that are battle spaces. Now, there are a total of 3 battle spaces on the board, but each kingdom can only battle each other kingdom in one spot. So, for example, if I'm playing the Shu, I can only battle Wei in the location that's only for Shu and Wei, and I can only battle Wu in the location that's for Shu and Wu. And then Wu and Wei have their own battle space as well.
Yes, the battle spaces represent the borderlands between the different kingdoms.
Each of the 15 available action spaces is going to use one of the 3 ratings for the general placed there to determine the size of the bid. The generals each have 3 stats on them. Their administrative level, which is the first number, their combat rating, which is the middle number, and their leadership rating, which is the number of armies that they can command. So if you place your general to bid on an administrative space, only his administrative rating will be counted for his bid. So if I'm playing as the Shu, and I place Liu Bei out in an administrative space, his administrative rating is 4. Ergo, that's my bid on that space, which is 4. At the start of the game, the Shu's in the weakest position, so they're allied with the Wu. This alliance translates into being able to jointly bid on one of the available common action spaces. Players take turns placing one general at a time until all players have placed all their generals. Multiple generals may be placed one at a time to increase a kingdom's bid for a certain action. For instance, if you've been outbid by another faction, or if you want to just strengthen your bid on your own. Once all the generals have been placed, all losing bids, i.e. the generals who were outbid, are taken off the board and returned in front of the respective player for next turn. After that, the number of winning bids are counted for each faction, with the player with the most winning bids going first next turn and not in the alliance, whereas the second most going second and is in the alliance, and finally the player who won the fewest bids goes last, but is in control of deciding where the alliance marker is placed for the next turn. After that, players in the same order as the bidding went resolves one action space of their choosing that they won at a time. Following that, there's an upkeep phase, and then players move on to the next round. At the beginning of 3 of the rounds, specifically the 3rd, the 5th, and the 9th round, players will be recruiting more generals, but in differing amounts. So that come the 9th round, all 3 players, will have had the same number of generals under their control. The game end is triggered when the first of 4 things happens. The end of the 12th round, or a player has developed 5 each of their farms and marketplaces, or a player advances to the Emperor's spot on the rank track, deposing the Han Emperor, or finally, when any one player stations his 5th general in a border location following a battle.
So, by the way, with those ending conditions, the only one we haven't seen in our 4 games is 12 turns.
Yeah, that's true. Every game has ended no later than the 8th round.
Yeah.
Once the game end is triggered, players finish all but the upkeep steps that round and score each of the 9 scoring categories. Whomever scores the highest wins. So, that's 3 Kingdoms Redux in a nutshell. So, Tony, I ask you, let's start off.
Yes, sir.
What makes the game heavy? Start off with the complexity.
Well, all right. For the balance of our conversation, I will interject a bit of Chinese wisdom here and there.
Please do. You are far more well-versed in the history and lore of the 3 kingdoms, whereas I focus mostly on Roman history, so this is, I defer to you.
Well, then maybe this will make sense, because this is Chinese wisdom coming from an Italian guy. Regarding the complexity, the gem cannot be polished without friction.
And what does that mean to you?
There is...
in context.
In context, there is a very good deal of complexity in this game. I think it mainly deals with the generals and their special abilities, and the state enhancement cards and their special abilities, and how all those things layer into what you're bidding on in the game and the actions you're seeking.
To piggyback on that, finding synergy in the generals that you draft, and I love that there is that drafting mechanic, but we'll get into that. That synergy, like having this general's special ability, or maybe not even his special ability, his stats that balance out, he's strong in administrative, whereas this other one is strong in combat rating. Finding that balance.
Yeah. Well, a couple of times in our plays, looking at the special abilities of a certain general, I've actually put the wrong general in the wrong spot. Just not being able to keep it straight in our earlier games.
Right.
I was able to, get a handle on that, obviously, but that is some complexity there that people are going to face early on in the game.
Yeah, I'd buy that. Another thing that I think adds to it is there being 4 different ways to trigger the end of the game, it requires you to not only play your faction, but you have to watch what the other 2 dudes are doing to make sure that if you're not ready for the game to end, i.e. you don't think you're going to score high enough in the various categories and be competitive, you better work on slowing down whoever it is that's close to triggering the end of the game.
And you can do that by using your generals to block bids, and
by outbidding them, right.
And extend the game.
Another thing I think is how to prioritize your actions with the bidding. If I'm early in the turn order, i.e. if I'm first, I'm not in the alliance. If I'm not in the alliance, then maybe I need to hurry up and get a bid in somewhere, because the first tiebreaker is who went there first. And so maybe I want to put a really strong bid in this action that I really, really need, but maybe I have 2 or 3 of those spots that I really, really need. How do I prioritize where to go?
Yeah, I find myself, I don't know, maybe it's a 50-50 split. I haven't really analyzed it, but often I'm doing exactly what you said. It's like, I really need that spot. Let me put a strong bid there and see if I can ward off any competitors.
Right, to try and dissuade anyone else from going there.
And half the time, I'm sandbagging, too, where it's like, like I did to Paul Chad yesterday. I dropped that 5 on top of his 4. He was out of generals. That was my last one. And
You were able to outbid him,
Yeah,
and
he
you
called,
not only
he called it a double effing because he couldn't use the parent or the sister action to that. It was recruit and train armies,
Right.
You know, so.
And the last thing I have on here, well, actually, I take that back. I have two things more complexity-wise. First off, you have to find a balance in running your state. You can't just load up on only one or two categories. You're going to get housed in the game. You'll have no chance.
Mhm.
You have to find how to balance and the timing of that balance to where can I get stronger in this area without wasting too many bids and having to put 2 or 3 generals in that to be able to win that. And try and find spots where maybe there won't be so much competition. And there's that complexity of, that goes into how to balance that.
Yeah.
Last thing that I have is kind of on that balance thing is you don't want to battle too often early. Reason being, if you do, you lose those generals. I mean, it's great. You're going to be gaining those victory points every turn by stationing armies and your general in the areas that you've won. However, you're going to lose those generals. That means your bidding power has weakened.
It's just dropped.
And now you're like, especially if you're Shu, who starts out with only 3 generals, if you battle with one of them, and it's great, maybe you win, and you get those victory points every turn for having your army stationed, but now you go from, you lost a third of your bidding power.
Your bidding power decreased and your upkeep increased.
Right. So just, holy cow.
So this is where I think the heaviness is in the planning to deal with that complexity. And this is where sparrows should not meddle in the affairs of geese.
I love it.
Like you're saying, where to play my generals. Do I put this guy out of play now and start building up some military victory points? But that's also going to increase my upkeep. Can I afford that yet? Because as I've learned twice, you don't want deficit tokens. I have acquired 2 deficit tokens in the course of our 4 games. And
you
they
have
hurt.
You
They're
have
-3.
won neither of those games.
I've won neither of those. By more than 3 I lost, though. But it still was a punch in the head.
But that's due to poor planning. Not being able to afford the upkeep.
In one case, it was due to, it was you competing on the treasury space.
Mhm.
I did not have the bidding power to keep up with you.
Right, because you would station multiple generals.
I was nailing 4 points a turn at that point.
Right,
but,
so,
and I needed that money to pay my troops.
That were stationed out there. Yeah. You don't want your troops rebelling.
It was brutal.
So, on that note, the question is, do you battle with generals and potentially lose not only his bidding power, but potentially his special ability by stationing him in those battle areas? And so you have to plan, okay, if I'm going to lose this general, not only, a bid in whatever strength bid he is, but potentially this cool special ability that I was able to bank maybe a couple turns prior, I no longer might have access to that, because once he's stationed, if it's something specific to him and not for your entire faction, you're SOL for that. So you better plan that out.
The only remedy for the complexity in this game, with all the different generals and card special ability and what your needs are and what risks you're going to take and everything, is planning. And it's heavy.
And even so, you got 2 other players that are doing their own thing as well that might not be on board with your plan.
Right. You definitely want a strategy in this game, but you do have to react to tactical changes or opportunities.
Because at the beginning of the game, you're going to base your long-term strategy on what generals you draft, what developments you draw, and exactly what they excel in. Which end game goal are you going to focus on? Like, are you going to focus on trying to race to one of them? Or are you going to be like, you know what? As long as the game ends in a 9, 10, 11 turn range, I don't even need to race to it.
Should be good.
Yeah, I'll let them worry about taking on, ending the game, and I'll just rack up points and not worry about doing that. Right. So again, that's more on that planning. Another thing on that note is, speaking of the state enhancements, that, what developments you draw, state enhancements, when do you build them? what do you build? Do you try and build all of them? Because they're all victory points. They're all 1 or 2 victory points.
Except that one we saw that was a 0.
Right. And that's the first time we'd seen that
Yes,
card in 4 games.
Yes, it was.
But you're thinking, can I advance my rank track to get to the Duke level?
Yeah,
because that's a prerequisite on
right.
some of them. So you're like, okay, I want to advance my the rank level. Okay, to do that, I have to spend bids here for the Han Emperor token.
And you have to have gold.
Then you have to have gold. And on top of that, you need to worry about not only do you have to have the Duke level, you're probably going to need rice, gold, or popular support or armies to discard to be able to build that state development.
Yep.
And so you have to plan all this 3, 4, 5 turns in advance.
So speaking of the state enhancement cards, I think that's a good segue into luck and random factors, because they are the primary source of luck and random factors in this game.
Agreed. Every faction starts with a different amount.
It's, let's see, Shu starts with 3 separation and 3 unification. Well, everybody gets 3 unification.
Right.
And then it's
3,
1,
2,
2, and 1.
Right, exactly.
For the other
based
kingdoms.
on Wei starts with the weakest, so the 1, the Wu 2, and Shu 3. And of the state enhancement cards, you have the 2 types, like you mentioned, the separation and unification.
Yes.
One of those is kind of endgame booster, victory point boosters, and the other is in-game boosters for resources. Right. So on that note, regarding state enhancements being a random, there is a space on the board in which you can draw new ones. You can draw 1 from one of the 2 decks.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I was thinking about, and here we are talking about variants and everything, but as our listeners know, you and I are not anti-random. We just want mitigatable random.
Yeah.
And something I was thinking about that occurred to me actually when I was driving over here was, instead of drawing 1, what about drawing 3? Keep 1.
Oh, yeah. I agree that that's a potentially mitigatable factor for that, because I think the game is too tight to waste 1 or more generals to win that spot and draw a card that's just dead to
purely
you.
random. Right. Like one of the ones I had, in fact, 2 of the ones I had yesterday were, one of the prerequisites, you couldn't have stationed any infantry armies.
Right.
I'd already done that. So
Right.
2 of my draws were completely dead. The only reason I would
Worthless.
build it is for that 1 victory point you would get just for
but
building
you weren't
it.
allowed to build it because of the prerequisite.
Good point.
Right.
I kind of got that idea because the other random factor is the drawing of the generals.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, each faction draws 6 generals.
Mm-hmm.
But the number that you keep, 4, 3, and 2, respectively, is based on what faction you are. So at least there, you're drafting some, so you have more than what you're going to keep, and then you discard them back into your deck, shuffle the deck up, and come round 3, 5, and 9, you're going to draw more than you get to keep again.
Yeah.
And that's what gave me the idea for the state enhancement, doing the same thing. I don't see a problem with that.
No, I don't see a problem with that either.
I think it'd be a really good way to... And again, here we are talking about... I mean, it's not like we're experts on the game. We've only played the game 4 times. However, the fact that it's another way to reduce some of the randomness and let you have a little bit more control over your faction or your kingdom, I think is a plus. But that's pretty much it, random-wise.
What I am an expert at is not enjoying a completely random factor that results in a wasted action.
Right, sure.
In a tight game.
It's one thing that you wasted an action because I outbid you.
That's part of the game.
Right, but just a bad draw? Well,
that's akin to, you lost because you rolled a 1.
Right,
And
and
that's unacceptable in a game of this weight.
Okay, all right. So, that kind of we'll get into things we don't like, whatever.
Yeah.
But as far as random, it's really those 2 things.
I have a mitigation thing that we tried. You want to talk about it now?
Sure.
We talked about drafting our state enhancement cards in the same vein as the drafting
in Agricola. Right.
We did that. So each of our kingdoms was dealt unification and separation cards, and we drafted the starting amount for each of our kingdoms from our decks, and then we just kept the rest of those cards
as our draw
as
deck.
our draw deck.
Individual draw decks.
Right.
Right.
And then when we went and we took that action, we just selected a card from our individual draw decks.
Which we already knew was there.
Right. So at least you're seeing 7 of each. Sound familiar?
Right. But again, I ran
So-
into the same problem that I didn't draw these. I had these 2 cards in my deck to where I was just SOL. I could not build them.
Yeah. But that's acceptable because now you're not wasting an action to discover that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure. But we're kind of going astray a little on the variant part. But as far as random, I guess we expanded on it a little early as far as things we don't like. But those are the only 2 random factors. The draw of the state enhancements and the drawing or drafting of the generals. But again, we're really okay with the drafting of the generals.
Often in a game, starting player order is random, but not in this game. It's Wei, it's Wu, it's Shu.
Right.
And then it's only going to change based on the winning of bids. So,
which
cool.
Which is a huge plus. I think that's a great thing.
Do you think the length of the game is a factor?
Not really. I really don't. I mean, to me, the length of the game feels appropriate for the game, first off.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's dragging. It doesn't overstay its welcome. The first game's going to run long.
Yes.
It's possible as you learn the game and as you get better at the game and your opponents get better at the game may actually take longer just because you're actually you're APing a little bit more because you're having to, you know more, you can strategize more, and it takes more time to process because you're looking at more things than you did when you first started.
You want those right synergies with the right generals and actions, and
But
good point.
But the game, in one game in which you tested racing to an endgame strategy, we timed it at 96 minutes.
Yes.
And that's as fast as possible, I think, that the game's going to end, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's going to fall in that 2 to 3 hour game length, which, again, it's not going to be based on player count because you're going to be playing with 3 players. Unless you double up, then it may be longer because people have to discuss. But I digress. What do you think about it contributing to the weight of the game? Do you think it's just, it is what it is, or do you think it really makes it heavier due to the game length?
No, I think as we mentioned, the weight's all in the synergies and interaction. So I think the game length, you stated it clearly with it is what it is. It's going to be longer and shorter sometimes, just depending on what's going on.
All right, so let's roll into get it length.
What
do you think?
A little more Chinese wisdom?
Sure. Hit me.
All things are difficult before they are easy.
Said every board game player in history.
Yeah,
okay.
Even the ancient Chinese board game players.
Right. They're playing Go.
I believe that it takes a full game to get the game, so you can experience the synergies, experience winning some bids, losing some heartbreakers, seeing the scoring and just how much of a factor it is or isn't, and various different things, army upkeep and how those army points come in every turn, and what factor that is in the game. So the scoring is interesting, and I think it's unlike most games, and that's an important thing to experience. So I think it was my 3rd game that I actually came to the table with a plan. Now, it was a terrible plan.
But it was a plan!
And to be fair, it was a plan designed just to challenge an aspect of the game.
To see check out the game space.
I want to see if I could break that,
right.
And
you broke you.
I broke me. I did not break the game. So yeah, I think a full game.
All right. See, that makes sense to me because my initial thought was you're going to get the game after a couple of rounds. Probably after the 3rd round, after you've drafted more generals and you see how everything works. Because the rules get out of the way early.
Mm-hmm.
Like Paul Chad, for instance, I taught the game to yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And he really started to really get into the groove of the game after, I'd say, about the 3rd round. But once the rules get out of the way, the weight of the game and the decisions kick in. The only thing that changes that, and that I agree with what you said, is the end game scoring and the way that works, because it's not simply, oh, I'm at 11 on my tribal track, you're at 9, and Paul Chad's at 5, or whatever. It's not, I get 11 points. No.
Mm-mm.
If I'm the individual first, I get 5.
Right.
If I'm tied, I get less.
Right.
And if you're individual second, you'll get 2, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of similar in a way, like Democker, in the categorized scoring and the steps that you have to go in. It's not all obvious and transparent where who's strong, because there was one game that we played that it looked like, and this is the game I was playing Woo, that I was getting destroyed.
This was the game I pushed to 6 turns.
Right. You tried to race the game and see how that would work. And I kept getting outbid, and I kept
you lost some heartbreakers.
Oh,
some bids. That game saw some intense bidding.
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah. And frustrating as all get out for me, because I'm like, dude, I can't do anything. You guys, I keep getting bullied. It felt like, but I was the only one that was balanced.
Yes.
I was the only one that was here and there. And I ended up killing both of you guys. And everybody at the table agreed it looked like I was far and away the third in third place. So the get it length, I think you need to see that end game scoring and how that works. You may get the game, but you won't get the scoring until after the first game. And by the second game, I think you can be competitive and maybe come in with a strategy, good strategy or bad strategy, but at least try and at least have the game rules out of the way.
Let me ask, because in preparation for our podcast, we purposely did it so that we all played the different factions at least one time.
Right.
And in the 4 games, we accomplished that. So it's probably, I'm thinking, as we're sitting here talking about this, it's probably better to grab a faction and stick with it your first couple games.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree.
And just play it.
Yes. Because we did that for our first 2 games. And I was the Shu.
I was Woo twice in a row.
Right. And Matt was Wei, and I was Shu. And I started out as the weakest of the 3 factions. But I'll be honest, out of all the factions that I played, and it could be because I played them first and the only one I've played multiple times, but I really enjoyed playing the Shu the most. I disliked playing Wei the most. Even though I won playing Wei, I disliked it the most. Not dislike, that's the wrong... I just enjoyed my play of Shu more.
Sure.
How about for you?
I like Woo. Number 1, it's red.
Okay. I wonder if it's because you started with that faction as well.
Well, it's the kingdom in the second position of bidding strength and the second position of resource strength to start the game, because everything's this asymmetrical yet balanced thing. So I had fun with that. It was a good level of challenge.
And see, I think that's part of why I didn't enjoy Wei, is because I never felt like I was able to do a lot because I had more generals and I wasn't getting outbid in a lot of spots, but I couldn't be in the alliance, and that was frustrating to me.
Well, let's segue, because we're talking about things that we're liking and things that are frustrating and things like that go on in the game. Let's use that to just continue that conversation.
All right. So hit me with your first point on what makes the game enjoyable for you.
Well, I'll start with more Chinese wisdom. Bitter pills may have blessed effects.
Okay. Learn me.
The frustration.
Yes.
The being bid out of critical actions.
Which I was intimately aware of.
It's awesome.
It really is.
The bidding in this game can get often intense when there's spaces that are going to be highly contested, and it is terrific.
And heated, but in a good way. Not I'm going to kick your ass.
Well, let's see. When we were bidding over that treasury spot, did we use 3 generals each?
I think so.
Yeah, and plus you used the Emperor token and Cao Cao,
right? So, who wins all ties? And so and
which is why I couldn't compete. But we went bang 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 bang. It was a Donnybrook for that spot.
And you know who enjoyed that the most, even more than you and I?
Yeah,
Paul Chad, because he who fights, with
let me win this action. Let me win this action.
Yeah, you guys go ahead and have a little dust up over there. knock yourselves out. I don't ignore the man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
Don't mind me. Going back to the artwork, for me, Roman history is what I've always loved and I've always focused on. However, the artwork in this game really draws you into the game. And I'm not, unlike you and Matt, who are big into the three histories,
Matt,
three kingdoms history. You guys are big time into that. I'm not, or I should say, I wasn't.
Awesome.
But the artwork just really draws you into the game. So the thematic aspect of the game really accentuates the enjoyment of it.
We're sitting here at my house today.
Uh-huh.
And on our table with the microphone is a copy of the Three Kingdoms book and an assortment of my 28 millimeter Chinese armies and generals of the Three Kingdoms period. And just trying to give a little theme to the room here and everything. And so that makes me glad to hear from you of your burgeoning interest in this period. And if you have any interest at all in the Three Kingdoms period, the game just comes to life in front of you with the artwork, the generals, even the state enhancement cards. You're going to enjoy the game's attention to detail of that period.
Another thing that I really dig about this is the asymmetry of the game, but how it balances itself out. So, the Shu, again, we're going to call that my favorite faction. It's the weakest at the beginning, but I get stronger as the game goes on. Mm-hmm. And while the other factions don't necessarily get weaker, if you guys are out stationing your generals and you're losing that bidding power, I not only gain more generals than you guys as the game goes on, but I gain even more because maybe I'm not stationing as much because I can't, because I have so few.
Right.
So I love just how well it balances itself out. It's obvious to me that this game was play tested just out the wazoo.
Yes. And what you said leads to another bit of Chinese wisdom. The incapacity to tolerate small frustrations will lead to the inability to accomplish big tasks. Because you as Shu, me as Wu, if you're not patient at the beginning and perhaps, not working, as we've discovered, with the other party of the anti-Wei alliance.
At least early in the game,
at least early. If you get too impatient with the game, you're not going to be able to reap those later rewards that you talk about it as you get stronger as the game goes on.
Yeah, that's actually, that seems quite apropos there.
Again, the bidding for actions where truth and illusion are often disguised as each other.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
I might, let's say you've bid a 5 there. I might bid a 3 there. What am I doing? Am I going to come by later and drop another 3 on there and outbid you? Or am I just maybe I can spare a general this turn. I'm just trying to sucker you into dropping another general there to strengthen your bid so I can get something else.
Or if you drop one of those 3 generals, or maybe even a 1, like if he's really weak in combat and you put him in a combat space and you're like, hey, maybe I can steal it for a 1. I don't really need that spot. Or maybe I'm going to come in with a 5 on top of it, along with some popular support, or maybe with the Han token, which gives +1 on the bidding. Maybe I'm going to do that to you. You don't know. And just that, the whole mind screw.
Yeah, we've had a lot of groans.
Dude, this game is full of cussing, left and right. But in a good way. That's usually a good indication at our game table.
Why did you go there?
Yeah, you son of a... Right, yeah, and all that. And another thing that I really dig is how, and this kind of harkens back to what I said about the balance earlier, is the stationing of your generals. It's awesome because if you station them early, that means they come with armies, and those armies are going to generate victory points early. And those, every round, you're generating victory points,
yes,
which is awesome. However, as we've said, you lose the bidding power because those generals are in early retirement. They go into those border spaces and they don't ever come out. There's no way to get them back. So you sacrifice that bidding power for those victory points. If you do it too early, maybe that hurts you. If you do it too late, maybe you fall in too far behind on the military track. And it's that sick, sick balance in this
and
game.
it costs you the gold and rice every turn.
Oh, the upkeep, because
Right.
every army, and you're going to have 1 or 2 armies stationed with each general, that each army is going to cost 1 rice and 1 gold. So if you station 2 armies with him, hey, that's awesome. You're getting 2 victory points every turn. Fantastic. But you're having to pay 2 rice and 2 gold every turn.
Yes, the struggle that is battle reminds us that not only can water float a boat, it can sink it also.
I love these. This is great. The alliance mechanic for the 2 factions. Whoever was weakest last round, i.e. who won the
least bids,
the fewest bids, are now allied. I love that. It's only for 1 space, but I love that. And on that whole alliance idea is the battle that Wu and Shu are fighting on the early part of the game to keep Wei from ending the game too early. You have to keep an eye on everybody in the game. And I think we have done a poor job.
I think you're right.
I think we've done a poor job of not letting the game go longer and giving Wu and Shu, regardless of who's playing. Well, obviously, if we're playing Wei, we want that. But
Right.
if we're playing Wu or Shu, which we have the majority of our plays, we're letting the game end too quickly and not letting us, who are weaker than Wei, come to flower our power, let it come to fruition. And by letting the game end too early, we're weaker. What do you think?
Well, I think that Matt, who normally plays Wei, loved hearing that because now he's going to have plans to defeat us.
But
We've just told him how we're going to win. Correction, you just told him.
No, but seriously, what do you think?
Yeah, you're right. You know,
Sweetest words in English language.
After our... Yes. I never hear them at my house.
The Han track. Now, it's a simple track. You go to this space. If you win the bidding, you can pay 1 gold and advance your marker up the track.
The rank track.
The rank track.
Yes.
I said the Han track, sorry. It's the fastest way to end the game, and it's for whoever's in first. If you make it all the way to Emperor, usually is going to be worth 10 points for you.
It's 5 for being first and 5-point bonus for being at the end of the track.
Right. However, it's the most expensive space. It not only costs you a gold to go there, essentially, because if you're going to go there, you're going to get it.
So if you went to 5, it would cost you 5 gold.
Right.
During the course of the game.
However, the cool thing about it is it costs you a general for 1 turn. And what happens is, and I forgive me for not knowing the exact reason, but it's like he has to spend the night in the Emperor's chamber. And so he stays there face down for the next turn.
He's out of the game for a round.
Right. And so it costs you that bidding power. So it weakens you the following turn because it's such a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love just that little tweak that they gave the game. And I really do appreciate it.
I like the treatment that Battle receives.
How so?
Well, the Borderlands, as you're
5
battling
per faction, or 5 between each faction.
right between each faction. So me as Wu, let's say, I have 5 facing Wei, 5 facing Shu, and each of those 5 spaces has a different weapon type of icon:
A ship,
a cavalry, crossbow, and spear. But the battle space itself is one of those bidding spaces. So you're bidding with generals, you're bidding with armies, and you're trying to win the bid. So I like that it's a bid, that number 1, for battle.
I mean, that's the crux of the
We're
game.
not rolling
that's
dice.
Right. That's the meat of the game, is all bidding.
Right. And then when you win the bid, stationing your generals, as you talked about, when you win a battle, you can station armies and the general in one of those 5 locations. The border location that you wish to station those troops in, the troops have to be armed with the same type of weapon as the icon there.
And even those are asymmetrical.
They are. When you station the troops, you get a little bonus token that can become either part of your treasury or part of your granary to help you with future upkeep of your troops. But it's got a 0 on one side and a 1 on the other side for victory points.
Mm-hmm.
And the key to flipping that from a 0 to a 1 is if your general that you're stationed there is a specialist in the kind of combat, cavalry, spear, naval, crossbow,
right.
that spot indicated. So yet another little level of, how to plan to get, those 1, 2, 3 victory points are important.
Because, I mean, on average, low 30s, upper 20s, somewhere in there is usually been our winning score.
That's what we've seen.
I like the opaque scoring at the end.
Yeah.
I enjoy that because there are games like, for instance, Dominant Species, where it's a real heavy pick on the leader type game. Whereas this, you think you have an idea, but you're not sure. Again, going back to that example, in that game that you were racing to the end, it looked like I was getting destroyed as the Woo. I mean, wasn't even going to be in the conversation. But because I was the only one that was balanced, come to find out, you two got smoked. And I appreciate that it's almost like a gamble. It's not a for sure thing. Okay, if I try and end the game, I'm going to win. You don't know that necessarily.
And you weren't comfortable at all with what was going on during that game.
Oh, I was miserable, but in a good way.
Yeah. Which leads me to some Chinese wisdom. One joy scatters 100 griefs.
So, hold on. Let me see if I can make sense of this one. I'm going to use a golf analogy here.
Okay.
I'm terrible at golf. It's the only thing that I've done in my life that I'm really, really bad at. I love it, but I'm terrible at it. I can go out, I'll shoot 100, 105 on an 18-hole course, right? But man, you get that one shot. Oh,
right.
Oh, it's pure. You just nut it. Just perfect. 290-yard drive, and it makes you want to come back.
Yep.
Something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly right.
All right, so we've crushed our plethora of likes about this game.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're going to do it, be honest, and we are, there's got to be some downsides to the game. So you want to start us off?
Yes, I do want to start us out. Really, there's only one thing I don't like about the game. And in my opinion, I think we've addressed it. And that's the random factor of the state enhancement cards.
Right.
I think we've solved it with the drafting we've done, at least for my personal taste. I don't know how you felt about that. I think the drafting of it was fine. If we continue drafting, but we did your idea of draw 3, pick 1, that would probably work as well.
I think I would enjoy that the most.
I'd still like to draft the beginning.
We'll disagree on that, but that's okay. That's okay. All right, sure.
But that's really the only thing that sends me.
Okay, and I agree with that. I have 3 others here, but again, these are quibbles. Okay, these are not major things.
Shoot.
Number
one, these might be things I've overlooked.
Okay. There are a couple of ambiguities in the rules, but to be honest with you, we were able to work them out with a bit of discussion and common sense, and there'll be no problem with FAQ if they were to come out with one and for a few of the things and boom, be done. Yeah. And that's that.
Yeah.
The game can be a touch fiddly. Again, it's a non-issue. I like roads and boats, and that's the epitome of fiddly. So this is nothing compared to that. But Amanda thought I should point that out, that she thought it could be a little bit because you have a lot of the race tokens, you have the gold tokens, you have the weapons, you have the popular support tokens. So you have a bunch of little tokens, but I really didn't find it that big of a deal.
When you say little, I mean, these are not...
No.
These aren't half-inch by half-inch chits. These are like 1 inch by 3/4. I mean,
they're chunky. Yeah, they're not roads and boats or antiquity size by any means. So I don't want to give that impression. The last thing that I wanted to bring up, and I think this is a bona fide minor gripe, is the bidding and action track can be a little confusing or wonky for new players.
Just because they're next to each other.
Maybe.
But they are clearly marked action and bid at the bottom.
Right.
I'd still like to see... There's actually some empty space over there. I'd still like to see them separated a little bit.
There's just... I think they could have been implemented a little bit differently to make it clearer. Just do something completely different than the way they did it. Gotcha. But once you play it once or twice, then you'll understand it. And having the 2 different sizes of the markers, the big helpful. And the little, that is helpful. But overall, I think there's a better way they could have done it. But again, they play tested the hell out of this, and it shows. So obviously, we could be the exceptions to this rule as far as it being,
right,
a quote unquote issue or not.
Sure.
But honestly, that's all I got, man.
Tell me your summary, sir.
All right. So I have a bit of a little paragraph here prepared.
Nail it.
All right. I wasn't really well versed at all in the history of the Three Kingdoms before this game. I'm big into Roman history and that part of ancient history. But having played the game, not only am I anxious to play it many more times, I'm excited to read the books, learn more in depth about the people and everything that transpired. Yes, it's a 3-player only game, but it's found a way to work nearly flawlessly. A legitimate candidate, in my opinion, for Game of the Year for 2014.
Ooh, nice. My mind is united, not divided, on this title. I think it's awesome. I love the period flavor. There are tough decisions in this game. The bidding is tense. The comparative scoring is awesome. We wanted to get our friend Matthew, who's played this game with us, and who's a huge...
I mean, dare I say, seriously, legitimate resident expert?
He was a moderator for years on the Scholars of Shenzhou website. I guess it's some big board, just totally dedicated to Three Kingdoms and ancient Chinese stuff. And what was actually really cool is when we were playing, Matt was regaling us with quotes from the period and telling us about, lessons on the subject and stuff. And that really enhanced our play a lot. And Matt was expecting, another Three Kingdoms game. He was expecting to be disappointed, but he said he was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, we touched base with him because we knew we weren't going to be able to record with him, unfortunately, today. And so we kind of picked his brain a little bit, like, hey, give us your thoughts, and we'll kind of...
What does a guy who is super into the Three Kingdoms period feel about this game?
The theme and the topic really works really well without bogging down in the minutia. And he gave an example. He said that when you draft generals, it's possible for you to draft generals that are long dead, that don't the timeline, because this covers such a wide time frame.
It's a game.
Right. And so they put the gameplay first, but they also were true to the history and the lore within the game. So with that said, let's go ahead and roll into our ratings. So as our listeners know, but maybe we have new listeners,
hopefully.
Our rating scale is 1 to 4. 1, we never want to see it again. Get it out of here. A 2, meh, not bad. All right, it's all right. 3, really good, but not necessarily a must-buy. And 4, stop what you're doing, go buy the game. You'll thank us in the end.
And notice there's no middle ground in there.
Right. There's no half stars. There's no 2.5.
A scale of 1 to 5 has a 3.
Right, exactly. And we did this on purpose so that we didn't have that. So, without further ado, Mr. Fryer.
I will lead with my last bit of Chinese wisdom.
Okay.
With true friends, even water drunk together is sweet enough.
That's awesome.
If you have any interest in the Three Kingdoms period at all, this game is a 4. Even if you don't have any interest in the Three Kingdoms period, but you like, the bidding for actions, the cards with special benefits and majority scoring, it's certainly a 3. For me, it's obviously a 4.
Yeah, I almost verbatim. That's kind of how I feel. If you're a Three Kingdoms fan or you're a history fan, it's a 4.
Yeah.
The end. And to be honest with you, if you enjoy bidding mechanics, that being the key, because that is what everything else is based off of, is that bidding mechanic, it's a 4. So, to be honest with you, I have it as a 4. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but between the artwork, the production quality, and the game experience, genuinely, I see myself playing this game for years to come. So, as we said earlier, we did get this as a review copy, and Tony's keeping this copy.
Yay!
But just to let you guys know how genuinely excited about this game I am, I've already pre-ordered with Christina and Youster my own copy of the game. I'm that excited about the game. And that's Three Kingdoms Redux.
Well, let us now turn our attention to some other things going on in the board gaming world.
Yep. As you might know, BGG-Con is happening as we speak. Well, really,
what? When?
Sort of. Right. Like when they're listening and stuff. So, there's some things that I wanted to point out about that here. First off, Saturday night, 8 p.m. local time till midnight, I'm hosting a heavy cardboard, heavy game night. type thing.
Yay!
It's going to be held in the Maverick Ballroom, which is behind the BGG Con library. There's going to be heavy gaming, and we've had, that I know of, 5 publishers that have agreed to give us games for giveaways. And I don't want to give anything away, but I will say this. They are games that fit our podcast. So there's no, hey, that's my fish.
That's important to us, actually.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's my first thing.
All right.
Sir?
Well, what I want to do is ask you some questions here.
Oh, boy. Here we go again.
I like to subject you to these psychology tests as we...
And again, we don't share... We share notes for what games we're going to hit on, like obviously the main game and our side games and stuff. But other than that, we keep our notes private so that he can do this to me, so you guys know.
Well,
it's all right.
It's important that listeners find out, just how disturbed we are.
All right, so hit me. What you got?
War games or Euros, and why?
Like only choose one,
yes.
You mean? Oh, and this may lose me some cred, but to be honest with you, it's got to be Euro games for me. And the reason, I love war games. I really, really do. But there are so many diverse topics, mechanics, and I guess themes and mechanics that can be covered in a Euro. Take, for instance, our main game, Three Kingdoms Redux. It has combat in it, but it's not a war game.
Right.
And it's very much a Euro game. I don't want to give that up. So if you put a gun to my head, I would lose half my one side of the room in my gaming library.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't give up the Euros. So that's me. How about you?
Cool.
Even though you've had time to think about this.
Yeah, it's absolutely the same thing. The Euros have fewer dice. And they are, I think, more interesting propositions and challenges. But, I'm a long-time board war gamer, miniature war gamer.
Right.
If I asked my friend Eric in North Carolina the same question, he would say war games.
Okay.
So just interesting.
I'm curious, just because I want to know, are 18XX included in the Euro side?
Oh, I think they would have to be.
Oh, rock on. Then that's a no-brainer. That's
right.
Easy. All right. So so basically, Tony's going to have test questions, and I'm going to have info. So here we go. The next thing I got, the last thing regarding BGG Con is, and this is for folks that are not attending BGG Con, provided I can upload them, I'm going to be taking videos every day, kind of like a video blog, and our buddy Sean is going to edit them.
Thank you, Sean.
And post them for us the day following. I'm also going to do a daily pod blast that Tony's going to edit. And,
thank you, Tony.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. And upload every night, the following day. And also, again, if you're not a follower of us on Twitter, even if you don't want a Twitter account, I would recommend following us while at BGGCon. I'm going to be taking a ton of pictures and uploading all that, so keep an eye out for all that stuff. And
I know because we recorded a segment on what our favorite mechanic is for the radio spot we do in Texas.
Which I'm going to roll into next. Okay, go ahead.
Which, by the way, we will release to our regular Heavy Cardboard listeners after it airs on the radio. But of these other game mechanics, organize these for me in order of your preference.
I hope it's not that many, but okay.
No, it's only 3.
Okay, cool.
Pick up and deliver, area control, deck building.
Deck building's last. And I blame Magic for that, to be honest. I played so much Magic when I was younger that I burn out. That's why I hate Dominion.
How can I like you?
I did, but hold on. There's a few Acres of Snow. I enjoy that.
Sure.
Star Realms. I enjoy that.
Star Realms awesome.
Hands in the Sea, which our buddy Daniel is coming out with. I'm really excited about that. So it's not like I despise it. It's just
of those 3.
Right. So the other 2 were area control
and pick up and deliver.
Youch.
Youch.
This is making exciting listening.
Well, I can edit it shorter.
I really don't know.
Okay.
That would be close between them, to be honest. Because there were a lot of pick up and deliver games that I wasn't too keen on.
Yes.
Say Zaya, for instance. Firefly. Amanda loves Firefly. I'm not a huge fan of it. But I enjoy the pick up and deliver mechanic. So based on that alone, I would put worker placement, number 1. I would put, of these that you gave me the option for, I would put area control next, then pick up and No, you know what? I'm going to say deck building, then pick up and deliver. All right, there you go. That's it. That's a long way to explain that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it surprises me too. Again, you give me no time to think about this.
Well, that's part of the point.
So ye that has had
Yes.
days to think about this. What do you got? So your number one was auction bidding.
Auction and bidding.
Right. Okay.
Then I would say of these three, area control, pick up and deliver, and deck building.
Okay. Wait, you're griping at me about deck building. You put it last two. Hey, what?
Hey.
But I'm curious.
Third of those three.
Where would you put worker placement? Since it was my favorite, I would go worker placement, then auction and bidding, and you would go auction bidding, worker placement. Right? Okay, I figure. All right. So piggybacking off of what you said regarding the radio segments, for those that don't know, we've said it before.
Mm-hmm.
For the last couple of weeks, we have been fortunate enough to be on the Planet 100.7 FM at Tarleton State University, a show called Boards and Bags.
Mm-hmm.
And every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, so adjust accordingly. And it's live. You can just Google the Planet Tarleton State University if you're so interested.
And the feeds in SoundCloud after the fact.
Right, so you guys can, they've had us, obviously. We have a weekly segment. They've had Rado on there. They've had Jamie Stegmeyer. I think they've had Bonacor on there. So they've had kind of a who's who. It's a really good show. It's 2 hours every week. And like I said, you can check out our segment, which we won't necessarily have all the segments that we release for that on our show. So if you want full content, check them out.
Cool. One last thing for me.
Oh, God. Here we go again.
What game have you had the least fun playing?
You mean other than Global Mogul?
Other than Global Mogul, and won't play it again.
All right, there are two that jump out to mind.
Excellent.
Because I don't really have a lot of games that I really dislike.
Mm-hmm.
Global Mogul, but again, that's more the production quality and boo hiss on Mayfair.
Yeah.
More so than the
wasn't a great game anyway.
Right, but still, the two that I really disliked, which don't hit me, but you know it's coming.
I know it.
Is Stefan Feld's Notre Dame.
Oh!
And the reason is I think it got built up so much to us that it's supposed to be, oh my God, it's such a great game. It was boring as hell. It was just boring and simple, and just both Amanda and I thought, ew. So yeah, that's
cool.
One.
Cool.
And the other, and I might get the name wrong on this, but I want to say it's like 2037 The Arctic or 2017 The Arctic.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember the exact name, but it's by the same designer who made Master of Economy.
Right.
The problem with this is not only the component or the graphic design is just terrible, the color choices were terrible, just the game was just wrecked. Just terrible. Never want to play that game again. So those would be my top three. How's that?
Very good. Very good.
All right. And it's funny how those come to mind like that, too. But Anyway, what you got?
I'm just going to mention one that stands out because I was so excited to play it. I was like, oh, and
I maybe I know what it is.
It's Circus Train.
Oh, wow. Okay, I was thinking you were going to say Zaya.
It's too long. Well, Zaya is
you didn't have high expectations of that to begin with, though, right?
Correct. Because I had read the rules.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, with Circus Train, I'd heard good things about it. Really wanted to check it out, but it's just longer than it needs to be, and about as boring as that, and just random fest. Never want to see it again.
All right. Huh. I've never played it, but I actually was.
Don't.
I was interested in it until I heard that you had played it, and that's your reaction. I was like, well, maybe I won't then. But
it had the word train in it, so I was like, cool.
All right. Last but not least, pretty excited. Secret Santas have begun on Board Game Geek. In the regular BGG Secret Santa and Santa Grogs, which is the War Game Secret Santa. Hopefully some of you guys are, and I'm hoping this time next year we're going to have our own heavy cardboard Secret Santa, because I think that would be cool, because obviously everybody who's involved is going to get heavy games, and that makes everybody happy, right?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
All right. So
let's remind everyone how to contact Heavy Cardboard.
As I mentioned earlier, if you're not a Twitter follower, it would behoove you to at least follow us, even if you don't have your own account, especially while I'm at BGGCon.
Twitter's cool. You're going to stay.
And to do that, it's at Heavy Cardboard. Facebook is Heavy Cardboard. Email heavycardboard@gmail.com. Website heavycardboard.com. Also, I want to say a big thank you to the three of you, Minneapolis Matt, Travis, and Wes. I wanted to say a big, serious thank you for donating to the Jack Vassal Memorial Fund on behalf of Heavy Cardboard, and for the things that you won. We will be getting those out to you shortly, or be seeing you soon and playing games with you all soon.
Thanks again to Game Surplus for sponsoring us. www.gamesurplus.com. Check them out. Home of great games at great prices. Well, that's about all we have for episode 12, guys.
I'm looking forward to meeting, hopefully, a lot of you guys at BGGCon. So if you hear this there, just look for the dude with the big elephant on his back. We'll see you guys next time.
Out.